Hello, my name is Mary Todd. On the board of directors of ISMTE, and today I am joined by the 2023 award recipient for the Award for Innovation, Juanita Goossens Roach. Hope I got that right.
That's right.
Shortened with, but also known as NEAT. And NEAT has received the Award for Innovation for 2023. She is a peer review group manager at Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Also the peer review administration and online peer review system services there. She's also the Disability and Neurodiversity Ambassador and a board director at ISMTE also. Welcome, NEAT, and congratulations. We really are thrilled to offer this award in recognition of some great innovations you have done. So to kick us off, this is pretty standard question. It's a great way for everybody to hear your history in the industry. Find that many of us come to scholarly publishing through different routes, and we wondered how you came to be working in scholarly publishing.
Pretty much accidentally, really. I studied music at university and I wanted to be a music teacher once I'd completed my studies, but it might be a bit harsh to say there weren't many jobs because at the end of the day I always need finances to pay for our lives. And I saw, and it was quite some time ago, it was in a newspaper rather than online, but I saw an advert for an editorial assistant at a journal before I joined the press, and I just applied because I had limited experience, and it was a starter role that didn't need that much experience in peer review. In fact, I had no experience in peer review whatsoever. And from there, stayed with that journal for 10 years and then moved to Cambridge University Press, kind of like a side step into a very similar role with a similar journal in terms of tasks and also submission numbers as well. So that was quite, and also submission site as well. So that was quite an easy step. And then from there, my career has just progressed in Cambridge University Press and Assessment. So pretty much accidentally, really.
Yeah, I think most of us answer that question by accidents and happenstance. So let's talk a little bit about the great things you're doing there at Cambridge University Press now. This award recognizes individuals who have, among other things, implemented innovative solutions to common problems. And one of your notable achievements is the development and launch of an online peer review training program for editorial offices, editorial boards, editors-in-chief. This includes interactive modules on peer review ethics, best practices, feedback, platform tips and tricks, reporting, user database maintenance, editorial office team transitions, publisher editorial office relations, and decision making. These are all familiar things to all of us here at ISMTE. It's really received a lot of positive feedback from the participants and increased the knowledge and really the empowerment of how policies and processes work from paper to practice, and how you can actually integrate and work within these submission platforms. So we'd love for you to share with us about the system and your role in its development.
Well, I think starting with the second part of the question first, that my role, it pretty much was my idea that I saw dealing with a lot of training that I've done, but also a lot of support queries that come in for other journals that I wasn't handling at the time. My question always was, well, if I know how to do it and the only difference is that the person asking the question has the same permissions as I do, like an administrator on the submission site, then there is a gap in training, because every person's training comes from a different place. It could be self-taught, it could be from a course, it could be from a colleague, etc. But it's not in one place. And what I wanted to do was not really reinvent the wheel, and those that that I line manage will love the analogies that I always put together. It's rather than reinventing the wheel, using a different type of tire on the car that you're driving. So instead of having square wheels, which I would never recommend, just a different type of tire instead. And so rather than reinventing the whole training process, I just thought, well, there are already resources out there, but clearly people are unaware that they're there, or they're not in a place that's easy to find. So rather than us putting together all of our own individual videos and guides and documents, etc., we've done some of that. It's more pointing people in the direction of the resources that already exists. And that also means less updating and maintenance on our side, because as processes, policies, journals change, we have to then think about, well, what are all those external facing guides and things that are linked out? Those will need to be updated. But if they are updated by, say, Clarivate or Aries on the submission platforms that we use, we link out and show people this is where you can get the information from, and putting together commonly asked questions. So kind of tailoring it to the needs of the person who needs that information. So rather than saying, go and read this 140-page guide, which no one's going to do, it's more, here's a link to what you need. So it's allowing them to go and view it in their own time, not taking too much time away from ours side in terms of scheduling a training meeting up and all of that stuff, but still allowing the person to know how to do the thing that they're asking to do, and empowering them in the future as well. So they're not just thinking, well, I still don't know how to do it because someone helped me last time, which is good. It's a bit like that. I think it's a parable or a fable, I want to say. If you teach, if you give a person a fish, they'll have one meal. But if you teach that person to fish, they'll be able to support themselves, basically. So rather than showing someone how to do something, which is all well and good, or doing it rather for them, showing them how to do it so that they know for the future, rather than doing it there and then for them. So I just wanted to, not only it wasn't too selfish, like trying to protect my own time and those that I line manage, but ensuring that the person who's asking for the training or asking for the query, they can't do something on the site, they can look there and then at these resources available, rather than have to wait for the person to respond and show them or set up a training meeting. So it's trying to work with what already exists, and just signposting to that, rather than just creating and maintaining our own guides and documents, which would just be too much work maintenance wise.
Right. And I think, you're really empowering people to access this information as they see fit and when they see fit. We know a lot of editors-in-chief especially are working super early Saturday mornings, and when you may not be available. And I also think that when I've spoken to people and they said, oh, I spent 3 hours trying to figure this out, like you're giving them the ability to do things on their own. And I think it's really great. And it's so encompassing for so many different levels in the peer review process. So it's really quite impressive, and I'm glad it's been successful. And education, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, empowering those, and in a way it empowers ourselves as well, because it means that we're not having to devote time to, the person can do it themselves almost immediately through seeing the resources and the training they can do themselves, and not have to rely, like you say, if they need something done on a Saturday, but we're not working on a Saturday, they have to wait until Monday our time when we start our work. It means that they can do that in the time that they have, because we're always appreciative that the editors and editorial boards, etc., they work mostly voluntarily on journals. Right. So it's fitting in to their time that they have outside of whatever their own commitments are, be it work, be it personal, whatever. So they don't work like standard hours that we necessarily do. So it's empowering those key stakeholders, but also ourselves as well, because then we're not being asked the return question because we did it for them last time rather than showing them how to do it.
Right, right, yeah. And may I ask, like, putting it together, you know, the nuts and bolts of putting it together. It's great how you're using the external resources that are updating regularly, because that would be a nightmare. It would not reduce your workload if you had to go in and update everything all the time. About how long did it take to pull this together, and what kind of questions were you asking along the way?
Well, it is a continually growing project.
Okay.
So every and I want to extend it further out to more external, particular editorial offices, because that's where the bulk of the queries come from. So every month I hold different sessions, because there's no way I can have everything covered in one session. And sometimes it's ad hoc depending on what people's needs are as well. I think how long it took me to put it together from just an idea to then rolling it out to where it's at now, I think it was about 6 months. Although I had the idea for quite some time, but actually sitting down and formulating a plan of who's the intended audience, what's needed, what do they want, what information can I put together that's going to be the best use of both mine and their time as well.
Yeah, it's always hard to capture the thinking time.
Mm.
So let me ask you, since you've gone through this process and continue to go through this process, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing our industry?
In general, or with the project itself?
I'd love it if you could touch on both.
So, well, I guess in general, the biggest challenge is that and it's not new and it's not going to go away. We're dealing with such a different group of key stakeholders so authors, reviewers, editorial boards, publishers, office staff, content management, all of that, editorial operations as well. And I think it's just every one of those key stakeholders, even myself, as I'm in one of those or a couple of those groups, their needs are different from the next. And it's ensuring that keeping everyone as happy as possible using the systems and the processes that we use. Not everyone's going to be happy. You do get some pushback from authors as well, not just editorial boards, about using submission sites or the questions they have to answer to submit their manuscript. So I think it's not really a challenge. It's just that being aware that we can't please 100% of people, but aim to please, I don't know, about 85% of all of the key stakeholders, because there'll always be some, even editorial office staff, there'll always be some that don't like something but just go along with it anyway because it needs to be done. Right,
right. That's a good point. What is your favorite thing about working in scholarly publishing?
It's a bit, I think what I like best, and it's probably not necessarily scholarly publishing, it's seeing how technology has changed since I first started, which was it was over 19 years ago. So we used like faxes and post, and we didn't and lots of printing out of stuff. And we did have a submission site. It was only just on when I first started, but seeing how technology has changed and come a long way, but more so since lockdown restrictions, a lot of technology has really ramped up, and it's been both beneficial but also not beneficial to scholarly publishing. So a lot of collaboration and communication is easier, lots of meetings like we're having now, lots of virtual face-to-face meetings, and that makes it easier. But I like how technology has helped to improve and almost shape scholarly publishing, but on a technical side, because obviously you don't need a submission site necessarily to write a manuscript, but you obviously need a submission site to then submit it and go through the peer review process.
Yeah, I think that's something Julie also touched on, was, you know, the faxing, and I remember when I started, we had something the hospital had developed, like a DOS-based system to track things. So it really has been nice to be so close to the growth, the technological growth in scholarly publishing. And do you, before I get to any final thoughts, do you still maintain your music practice?
I do, I try. It can be hard because a bit like learning a language, it's always easier when you're younger. I started when I was 7, so it was easier to go through the process, and also I didn't have a full-time job, so although I was at school, schooling hours are a little bit less than a full-time job, but I'm also trying to teach my daughter as well, which more the theory side of things, and also how to read music, because what I really enjoy doing, it sounds a bit strange, but I like to, if I'm listening to a piece of like classical music or piece of music that has sheet music, I like to read along as it's being played, so to almost like I guess reading a book as you're watching a film, you know what's going to come, and it's quite exciting to see that, but reading along, it's a bit strange to explain it, but it works.
Ah, I might have to try that. So do you have any final thoughts for us?
No, other than just very honoured to be receiving this award and recognised for what I've done, particularly this big piece of work that I'm doing. It's always evolving, less so now, but it's not that it's come to a point where it's perfect. There's always going to be added things as policies change, as training needs change as well, particularly onboarding of editorial staff and editorial team transitions. I think that's where some of the training can be, I wouldn't say lacking, but to ensure it's standardized so that a person knows exactly what's in their role remit, what they can do, what they need to do on the system, and therefore the only questions they would have is just follow-up questions rather than more basics. But yes, I'm just extremely honoured to receive this.
Yeah, well, we were so pleased to read the application letters, the support letters people wrote, and it was very clear that we wanted to highlight your good work here. So again, congratulations from ISMTE, and thank you also for everything you do for ISMTE. We really appreciate your time and your dedication.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, take care, Neat.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.